Welcome to another conversation in People in Fundraising. This podcast features interviews with nonprofit professionals who discuss their career journeys, lessons learned, and enthusiasm for working in fundraising. And here's your host, the founder of People in Fundraising, Tim Wilson.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Tim Wilson. I am the founder and host of the People in Fundraising Professional Conversations webcast. It is Wednesday, August 3rd, 2022, and I am delighted to welcome Neida Jimenez to our program today. Neida, how are you?
I'm doing well. It's so good to see you.
Thank you
for having me.
My pleasure. Thank you for coming on the program. Neida and I worked together for a few years at Harvard Business School, and I'm excited to see how her career has progressed. She'll talk more about that. By way of introduction, Neida is currently the Director of Major Gifts for the Damore McKim School of Business at Northeastern University in Boston. Anything you want to add, Neida, to that before we go into the first question?
No, let's jump in.
All right. So if we want to work backwards from where you are now at Northeastern, how did you get into the nonprofit philanthropy world, and where have you gone and the roles you've had?
So I don't think anyone grows up saying I want to be a fundraiser. I kind of stumble upon it like many people, but I did have one kind of certain piece of knowledge that helped me, which was the fact that I had worked in universities. I started my career in universities, and I've actually done my whole professional life in universities. And I knew that that was an environment that I wanted, that I thrived in, that I enjoyed it. And so that was sort of my first clue. But I'm a big nerd. I thought I would pursue a PhD. I thought that that would be sort of my path. I started working at universities in various initiatives, faculty-driven initiatives. When I joined Harvard, I was working in interfaculty initiatives. And that gave me a lot of experience. Herding cats, so to speak, which is working with faculty, managing projects, really sort of strategy, communications. And I got sort of I was able to try a couple of things. And in that was sort of by the first part of my career. And the second part of my career was basically after 6 years at the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Study, which was kind of the third interfaculty initiative that I worked at. I basically did a bit of soul searching. I took a break. I went to grad school, and I went to pursue a master's in higher ed, and used that opportunity to actually dip my foot in fundraising. And then the other part that I was exploring was communications and kind of public relations. Then I did 2 fellowships at Penn. And I walked into my fellowship around, it was actually the Penn Medicine, the Cancer Center Research Center of Penn Medicine. And I knew where I was. I recognized it. I was like, okay, I can speak this language. I can translate what somebody's doing, somebody who's very passionate about, but might not be able to actually convey that to people that are not in their field. I can do that work of translating. I can build trust with faculty as I partner with them to kind of push their programs. I could actually move things within a university. Universities are very complicated places. Decision making is very diffuse, and you have to persevere. And I was able to kind of navigate those environments and felt like so confident and so excited about it that after I got back, after I finished my master's, I realized that that was the path I was going to follow.
Oh, awesome.
So, yeah, it was a second career, it was a second tour of duty in my professional life. but always in the same environment of universities. It's what really appeals to my heart. It's a mission that I identify with. I believe still in the power of education as the equalizer, as the creating opportunities.
Yeah.
And that's how I sort of found myself in development. And then I started in the back end of the shop doing grants, writing grants and crafting gift opportunities.
Okay.
And then from that, I became a contact expert in a few areas like financial aid, undergraduate research, graduate education. And my first frontline role was as a director of the graduate school fund, which was a tiny little fund within Harvard, which is a massive institution.
Yes.
But it was very great to have that tiny role because I did everything. I was responsible for appeals. I was working with volunteers. I was actually meeting with the dean, and I was seeing donors, and I was partnering with alumni relations to plan reunions. And I just became very well versed in operating a fund. At that time, I was raising a little bit over $2.3 million.
So you got exposure to everything.
Correct.
That's awesome.
That sort of was I dove in. And then from that, the path took me to leadership giving, which I'm very passionate about, and we can talk about a bit more, which is really sort of the middle of the pyramid, cultivating and educating donors to be annual supporters and make significant gifts. And then I moved to major gifts and international work. And then I am back now on the major gift front. And so that's been the trajectory.
That's terrific. I mean, and it must have been so, looking back, probably you have more awareness than maybe in the moment, but just what a rich experience you had to have exposure to, as you mentioned, appeals and communication, and you had grant writing experience before then, and then reunion programming. So what was it about the frontline work that kind of was most attractive of the variety of initiatives and responsibilities that you had at that time?
I think as much as I liked the annual fund, you're right. It was the ability to focus. The ability to do really concentrated work was first.
Yeah.
Second, there are, and it's unfair in the field, but there's opportunity for much more advancement along the frontline work. It gives you much more versatility.
Sure.
You can move across institutions easily when you have that experience. And so I sort of dipped my toe on the leadership side and then kept growing on that. But the third, I enjoy meeting with donors. It's still the favorite part of my work.
That's awesome.
As much as I love universities, I get quirky professors, I get a kick out of all that. I meet great people.
Yeah.
And that's really, that gets me going in the morning. I get a chance to meet great people.
That's awesome. Is there, you don't have to name names, but is there any particular donor that stands out, across the institutions?
Yes. My few angry donors stand out. And I think it took me a while to really realize. I had heard other more senior colleagues say that an angry donor is a donor that cares.
Oh, interesting. Yeah.
It took me a while to actually kind of build the endurance and the confidence to kind of stand up and listen. When you're in that situation, when you're junior and you're just still learning the ropes, it's very easy to take that personally and like feel intimidated or and it's not about you often, but most of the time it's really about something they want to be heard about. and they share their frustration because they care deeply about the institution. So I actually, my most treasured memories of the characters that I really hold very dear are those conversations that started very badly and then ended up actually in great success stories. In me trying to figure out what really they wanted to accomplish, if we could do it together. If not, how to direct them and be helpful to them, but build a relationship that they felt heard. And that was very exciting, but you have to grow up to do that.
Yes. You have to develop a thick skin, I imagine.
Yes. And that's tough. It's a tough balance because I think development as a profession trades on sort of kind of pleasing and be ultra responsive to people, etc. Sort of, and I think it's not that you don't want to do that, but you also have to kind of hold your own. You have to hold your space, and you have to also represent the institution. So you balance all these things, and I felt very grown up and very accomplished when those situations turn around. It was like, yes.
Yeah, that's significant. And I, for someone that has not been in the frontline role, I have like a theoretical appreciation for the difficult circumstances that you and others find yourselves in. So to hear that, angry donors and how to show up and listen and try to make it
keep
work.
Showing up. Like keep showing up. Don't not being scared and intimidated, and continue the conversation.
Yes.
Continue getting that other date. Oh no, this is going somewhere. This is a conversation. There might be an angry undertone, but it is a conversation.
Yeah. And was that for you? Was it as you tried to develop that listening ability and sticking with it? Were there people that you turned to for help, or was it just kind of your own like on the job training, like you're thrown into it?
I think I cannot think of a particular person, but there was a lot of preparation and approach those conversations with a lot of discipline.
Okay.
I was very clear that that I wanted the conversation to continue. How could I keep that conversation going, even if we hadn't gotten to what we needed to get to?
Yes.
So I was extra prepared, and I was very studious about it, and I'm sure I talked to people along the way to kind of bounce ideas, but it was to kind of form a bit of a discipline about that.
Yeah, that's really insightful. Thank you for sharing that. And my next question, you've touched on it, about higher education and the opportunities for life-changing opportunities. As you look back on your career in fundraising, so larger, like you mentioned, higher education is very meaningful for you. Within higher education and the fundraising roles you've had, what has motivated you to stay in fundraising? Is it the impact of the work you help to facilitate? Again, is it the opportunities that funding provides to other people? The institutional missions you've been a part of?
I would say that like I mentioned before, I do have the opportunity to meet great people.
Yeah.
The alums themselves are exceptional, and in all institutions that I've worked at, and that is very energizing. I've had opportunity to grow in my career, and it hasn't always been easy.
Mm-hmm.
But I've had the opportunity to grow, and I do recall meeting once a very senior principal gifts fundraiser who actually showed me her white hair, and she said to me, "This is one of the few professions in which these white hairs matter."
Oh,
Uh, they're actually an asset. They're
yeah.
actually, I'm respected for it. It brings in legitimacy. I'm not
Mhm.
discarded as an older woman. And I thought that was so powerful, that she had found room to grow and grow old and develop and grow with her donors. You're
Oh,
growing with your donors too.
sure.
Uh, so I thought it was like a brilliant moment, and I found a lot of opportunity, a lot of professional opportunity. And I think that the last part, it might relate to impact, but it's, I think fundraising and philanthropy in the context of higher education is really simply about being part of something bigger.
Yeah.
And that is inspiring for me. Um, the it that your fundraising changes, but when you are in, and you feel it much more in a campaign, it's much more pronounced in a campaign. But when
Sure.
you are like this piece of something that is just moving and is happening 5 years from now, and we're building it now, etc., it's
Yeah.
actually very cool. And it gives you, it gives me at least meaning. It gives
Mm.
meaning. It gives some sense of permanence. I raise funds that are forever,
Yeah.
and I am part of projects that will far outlive me, and that's I think that's kind of exciting. But there's
Oh,
this big enterprise, this big ship.
yes. Yeah. And like that is kind of mind blowing to think that, as you mentioned, like these funding initiatives will outlive the people that ask for the money and the people that give the money. And that, I mean,
Absolutely.
I know that piece of it because, with planned giving and such, and other types of legacy gifts, but to think of it from that perspective too, like the professional legacy that you will leave behind through funding opportunities for donors that you'll for recipients that you'll likely never meet.
Yeah.
That is
Yeah.
that is kind of a mind
It's
blow.
it's almost like an act of faith, and it really
Yes.
is faith in the institution, faith on the importance of that gift and what it can do, and trust. Yeah.
Yeah,
So
that's huge. That's terrific. I really loved that answer. Thank you. As you were starting that response, Nada, you mentioned that at times it hasn't been easy as a frontline fundraiser. So whatever level of detail you want to go into, are there particular challenges that you have overcome to get where you are today that you look back and, man, it was really hard, but it helped me get where I am now?
yeah, there are not many people that look like me in the front line.
Mm.
Frontline institutions are famous for sort of replicating themselves, and
Oh.
in fundraising this is perhaps I would argue that even more pronounced.
Hmm.
There was the assumption that the frontline officer that you would send out to represent your institution had to have the same background as the people that you were
Mm.
fundraising from, go to the same clubs, have the same shorthand on. They use their verbs like that, summer and wintered.
Oh, yes, yes.
and and I think it took a long time. Like the director of graduate school was sort of a breakthrough role. I think perhaps because it was a project that had less visibility within the
Mm.
university,
Uh-huh.
and I was able to play with it. And then once they saw that I was succeeding, then I got the chance, because I tried several times to move to the front line and it did not work.
Oh,
And
okay.
I believe that there is a part of that. There is an element of kind of discomfort with the look, discomfort with the experience, discomfort with the accent,
Mm.
discomfort with everything. And I think the field has evolved for sure. It's been
Yeah.
slow, but it has evolved in that. But that was one of the barriers. Second,
Mhm.
that once I got there, it was lonely.
Mm.
I really never enjoy mentorship. It took a long time for me to actually, I built my own. I call it my own little cabinet of people, of advisors who are friends from different industries, actually, because I struggle so much to kind of find mentorship within the field.
Oh, okay.
And that's something that I'm very passionate about now, for being that for other people. But
Sure.
I know what mentorship meant. You know, you and I know people that started from staff assistant all the way to VPs.
Yes.
That has not happened without support and without intentional sort of coaching. And I was not really part of that, and I miss that. And I'm glad that I had the wherewithal to get there in a different way.
Yeah.
But that was not easy. That was not easy.
Sure. So with those experiences, Neida, have they, that's unfortunate in your early career, have they propelled you to seek out people that, to use your words, look like you, have the background that you do? Are there people that you aspire to bring up in the ranks to diversify the profession?
Yeah. One of the things that I started a few years ago through a venture grant of the Case Foundation, we started a local group for diverse professionals in advancement.
Oh, awesome.
And it's been a local effort, labor of love, but it's actually, because we're so few, we have to basically like reach out and find each other in different institutions.
Sure.
And including independent schools. It also brings people from the nonprofit sector, which actually is much more diverse than academia. Frontline officers in the nonprofit sector are much more diverse. So that tells you something.
Yeah.
And we meet regularly for networking, for learning, for support. We have different projects. We just secure funding for kind of build more of an online presence and perhaps test some of our take some of our networking with using digital tools and online tools as well. But it has been the first time I call that meeting, 90 people showed up. I had no idea there were 90 people that basically in Boston, in the Boston area. And it was a beautiful rainbow of color and experiences. They were not all frontline, of course. Many of them were actually in advancement services and things like that. But they wanted community.
Sure. Yeah.
So that's been sort of my project for the past 3 years. We're going on our 4th, and now I am our co-chair is Henry Gang, who's at BU.
Oh, okay.
And so we have 2 frontline officers from different institutions leading the project. And
that's phenomenal.
HBS as well. So it's been a labor of love, and we are each other's advisors and mentors. That's our commitment to each other.
That is so cool. Is there a website that you want to plug here?
I will have to get that to you because
That's fine.
we're building it right now.
Oh, okay.
We are
Great.
building it right now. But yes, I'll make sure that we, as soon as it's ready, I can drop that and we can just attach it to this video.
Okay, great. Yeah, because I'm thinking as you were talking, I thought when I post your conversation probably later this month, I'll make sure to tag.
Yes, absolutely. That would be terrific.
Yeah, just to maybe raise more awareness, help you raise awareness. So
yes,
that's really terrific. And I imagine that's got to be really professionally and perhaps personally fulfilling to have this vehicle and to see, we talked about legacy giving earlier, but to see a part of your legacy now continue through the work you help provide in the rising generation of diverse fundraisers.
Yeah, and it's been also an interesting exercise because it's given me visibility as well, which I didn't have outside of my institution. And it has allowed me to become involved with other groups like AFP, for example, Association for Fundraising Professionals, which includes much more nonprofit, the nonprofit world. And then with Plan Giving, with the Plan Giving group of New England, I was a diversity fellow for them and learned a ton of around Plan Giving. So I've been sort of weaving all these different worlds as I go, in the name of sort of this building community for diverse professionals that don't stay, that have a hard time staying for all the reasons that I talked about.
Yeah. Well, that's beautiful. And I'm so glad that we've got time to talk about that. And I can just tell your enthusiasm for it. So yeah, thank you for sharing that.
Yes.
And I guess, following up about, writ at large, some of the challenges you've overcome in your profession. Is there a particular experience that stretched you as a person? Maybe it was the recognition that, there weren't a lot of people that came from your background, and now you're doing something to help change that, or?
I think this project definitely has stretched me also because it's diversity in not only ethnic and racial identity, but also LGBTQ individuals. And it's really, so it's always a conversation. Every meeting feels like a conversation in which, what's your story? Let me tell you my story. Can we share? And that's really something that has energized me a ton. I also have to say that after having had a career at Harvard for many years, it was very scary to leave.
Oh, sure.
And I decided to leave because I almost felt like I had to test myself in outside the comfort zone.
Yes.
And it was, I think that is something that that as professionals we have to do. We have to kind of face this fear and push away from the comfort. And even if it's a wrong decision and then you have to change it and whatever you change course, but have the courage to actually go out there and challenge yourself, learn in a new environment, learn a new institution, be successful in a different context, and also in the process, figure out what you're worth.
Yeah.
That is important data. That's when you know how much my work is worth.
Yes.
And I needed to know that. But I had to step out of Harvard to do that. And it's wonderful. I had an amazing training. And like I said, I think Harvard continues to be part of my life. But I'm glad that I took that risk.
Yes.
And that was really, really satisfying, face your fears.
That's true. I mean, it is a leap of faith, and it's a leap into, obviously, there are some known elements, but unknown elements as well. And you're right, like sometimes it doesn't work out, but you take that first step, and that gives you, just speaking for myself, and it sounds like for you as well, it gives the confidence to pursue other opportunities.
It does. It will inevitably create other opportunities for yourself and for you and again, in the process, you learn what your work is worth, what you need to add to your portfolio of skills, what you don't have, what you're missing, what you're very good at, etc.
Yeah.
You just learn about yourself in the market, so to speak.
Yes.
And that's very important information to have.
Yeah, absolutely. And the time that we overlapped at Harvard Business School, nothing against HBS, it was just me. I feel like if I were still there, I would not be doing this podcast series. I would not be involved to the extent I am with the professional prospect development organization, APRA International. and Apra, Utah, the regional chapter.
Yeah.
So like a professional leap, when we think of it just in terms of a job, actually also can open up doors and windows of professional development in other areas too.
Absolutely, absolutely. And again, I think we both benefited from amazing training, but that training is yours. You can take it wherever you go, and you can you can still add to that and even bring it back to Harvard if you want to. But it I think you just take ownership of your career in a way that's very empowering.
That's beautifully put. I really, really enjoyed that piece of our conversation, Neida. Thank you.
Yes.
Just looking at our time, I think a last question, and then if you have any other thoughts after responding, I'd love to give you some time. As you look back on your career, and it could be at the David Rockefeller Center for Latin American Studies, or it could be, in the frontline fundraising world that you've now been in, the second stage of your career. Who would you look back on as like your first example of professional leadership? What did you learn from that person, and how have you, tried to emulate some qualities that you admired?
That's a tough one because you grab from so many people along the way. But I have to say that I was incredibly fortunate, and I need to tell him this someday soon, to work with the director of the David Rockefeller Center at the time was John Coatsworth, and who went on to become a dean at Columbia University. And he was a remarkable manager and a remarkable scholar. And that's a rare combo to find a faculty that has that strength along strategy, along sort of execution, and actually with the kindness and the openness to just bring people on. Great eye for talent, great warmth that did not exclude sort of high standards, but there was warmth and there was welcomeness to him that I just absolutely took with me, beyond the Rockefeller Center. And I saw and recognized it in Nathan Noria. That dean that you and I got to work with. What an amazing, amazing leadership, articulate and in a way that they could bring people along. But also, again, warm and competent and just inspiring. It was just the right mix of things, and that's not very common.
Right.
A lot of people have one strength when they're not as strong in the others, and they might not be aware as well. And in academia, that prizes so much sort of the academic standard to have the academics credentials, to have that strength in management. It just made a world of difference. It made higher ed feel not just higher ed. It was a superb operation, and it felt it was a very great experience. So I think I would take those two individuals that left a big imprint for me. People that you wanted to follow.
Yeah, absolutely. And the reasons, as you mentioned, the reasons why you want to follow them too, just that those combinations of skills and warmth. So that's awesome.
Yeah, so that does not relate to fundraising, but it does relate to leadership.
Absolutely.
You have to have a vision, and you have to bring people along, and have the that combination that delivers on the ideas, but also inspires, and just have people asking, "Tell me where we're gonna go next. Just tell me."
Yeah.
And we're going.
Yeah.
That is exciting. Very exciting.
And I think of Dean Nathan Noria. He came in after the global recession in 2008. then leading Harvard Business School through its centennial celebration, and then, comprehensive campaign, and, a dean for, I don't know, was it a decade or so? Like, he had these really informative and well-paced town halls where you could theoretically sit next to a Clayton Christensen on the faculty, or some of these really significant, accomplished professors, faculty members, and then you'd have little old me, back in Teal Hall, and I just think he did a great job bringing that that diverse community together.
The enterprise, yeah, we were all made to feel part of. We were doing it together. We were building it together.
Yeah.
And had the gravitas to get the attention of the Michael Porters of the world, but also everybody that was there in their different role felt like they matter and they were important. They were connecting to something bigger.
Absolutely. Yeah. Well, on that theme of connecting, Neida, it's been a real pleasure to reconnect with you.
It's awesome. I'm really excited that you're doing this project. Again, when you want to just sit down and talk about some of the insights, let me know, because I think this is stuff that we should be sharing in the discipline. There are a lot of sort of tidbits. I'm sure that my colleagues are giving you so much good information that needs to be pushed out to folks, especially new people in the field, and new people that don't have the opportunity to have the colleagues that we have.
Right.
And will share their learning. So I'm happy to be helpful in any way I can to share and spread the learning.
Thank you. And we spoke about a month ago, and you gave me a great suggestion, which was, in addition to these, full-length interviews, that it may be helpful as well to break them out into smaller segments and just post, a 5-minute response. And you did,
Correct.
A masterful job talking about the diversity initiative in Boston you're involved with. And so, I'd love to get any information about that group.
Yes, I'll pass that along. Yeah.
Awesome. So we can just send it out and hope that attracts more people. So
yeah. So happy to be helpful, and it's been so good. Thank you for having me.
My pleasure, Neida. Thank you so much. Your interview will come up sometime later this month on a Monday. You can find Neida's conversation on our website, peopleandfundraising.com. Neida, thank you so much. Have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Tim. Bye-bye.
Bye-bye.